is probably the oldest vines you will ever in your life have the opportunity to drink. These vines from the grandfather block of Henschke Grace were planted, they reckon, in 1860. They know the vineyard was sitting there in 1860 from records that they have. And to look at the vines is just extraordinary. They are these old, big, gnarly trunks, almost tree trunks of vines that produce tiny quantities of fruit every year that go into this vine. So 1860 fruit goes into here. Actually, it comes from 6 different blocks, though. And the youngest block, if you can imagine, is 1965. So the oldest block went back to 1860, all the way through to 1965. Incredible story behind Henschke Grace. Vineyard originally planted by Lutherans from Germany who settled the region and made vine from clones that probably don't even exist in Europe today. Because remember, a lot of these clones were wiped out during the phylloxera in the late 1800s and early 1900s. So it's extraordinary planting material that we've got going into this wine. It's now run and managed by Prue and Stephen Henschke. Stephen's father was Cyril Henschke, who started to make a single vineyard out of this wine. This, for me, is 2005, is probably the epitome of what the Hill of Grace can achieve. They're very old vines that struggle every year. And in great years like 2005, where you've got a warm but consistent growing season, they produce this extraordinary fruit and this expression. So on here, you've got all of this complexity that comes from the terroir, but also that vine age and that vine material. And you've got that classic sort of sage character to the wine that we always sort of look for in the Hill of Grace. Just a very sort of delicate, almost dry, liberal character that comes through on there. And tons of fruit. It's very concentrated while being incredibly elegant as well. A real fineness to the tannins, to a real soft voluptuousness that you get on here. It's quite a cool climate growing region. It's about 400 meters in altitude compared to the valley floor that you get down in the Grosses. So this is up in the Eden Valley. And you get a much more elegant expression of the Shiraz right there. I absolutely love this vintage in particular. It comes from a trio of vintages, 2004, 2005, 2006, all very great vintages. But I just love the 2005 a little bit more because it did have that sort of moderation in the growing season with no heat spikes, giving those fully ripe tannins and flavor compounds that you really want in an extraordinary wine.
Neil, what would you like to say?
Yeah, it pulls off that very difficult trick of getting the real fruit intensity and the real power, but also having the elegance. To do both, to do one or the other is easier than having both. And I think that the great wine will have both of those. You get almost explosive flowers, and you think it's going to be an overwhelming wine, but it's not. It's like seamless tanning, it's a beautiful balance. Real density there. Again, it's very seductive now. Again, these can last 30, 40 years. But if I had it myself, I would be trying to stop myself from drinking. But fantastic wine.
Well, these wines age extraordinarily well. So I've tasted very recently, in fact last year, all of the vintages of Henschke Grace going right back to 1958, and many of those vintages holding up incredibly well. Particularly going